The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. I'm your host, advanced certified weight and life coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to stop dieting, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hi, welcome to episode 44. This episode, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I approach some common themes around maintenance when my clients are getting close to maintenance and how the different aspects start to change around this. Before I go into how I coach around maintenance, I want to just remind you that today is the 1st of August. 2 weeks from today, the Love Life and Lose Weight book releases as a Kindle book on Amazon. So if you missed my announcement a couple of weeks ago, the best gift you can give me, if you appreciate the podcast and you've gotten some value, is to mark your calendars for August 15th to go to Amazon and just look me up as an author, find the Love Life and Lose Weight book on there, and go buy the book. I'm really relying on you, my community, to cause, some buzz on Amazon. Buy the book, tell your friends about the book, read the book, review the book. Your reviews help so much. And if you do any one of those things, I have freebie gifts for you. If you visit my website, hbeardsley.com, and you just click the top book menu, you will see that your order number, once you've purchased the book, you can put it in there and you get a free workbook, a companion workbook that goes with the book that gives you just a summary of each of the chapters, some bonus content, and a written out questions for all of your coach homework for each of those chapters in the book. It's going to be amazing. And we're in the last stages and I'm super excited about it. So if you would please just remind yourself, August 15th is the day. All right. So let's talk about maintenance. I just want to go over some things to consider. Now, if you're not even close to maintenance, I still think that this is very applicable for you as a point to tether yourself to always look ahead to what's coming, because talking about a goal without really thinking about what it's like to be there is kind of like, doesn't really give you the full path to get to the goal. It's like a mountain climber. They have a tether that tethers them to the top, that keeps them secure and focused in the right direction. And thinking about you at goal weight is a powerful point of focus to always stay attached to. So how do things start to change in the last 10 pounds approaching maintenance? Well, there has to be some clarification that happens on these vague concepts when you start to get a little bit closer. So, for example, if you're my client and you're about 10, even 20 pounds from goal weight, we'll start talking about being very detailed about, like, what is your maintenance range? Because goal weight is not one exact point of weight. It is a range of weight, because the human body will fluctuate for most women between 1 and 4 pounds, depending on the types of food you've been eating. For every carbohydrate you eat, there's something like, don't quote me on this, like 7 more grams of water molecules that stay around until you've burned or packed away that carbohydrate, versus a similar carbohydrate or gram of fat or protein. So the more carbohydrate you eat and you fuel yourself with, the more water that will hang around until you burn that fuel. And this is why, after let's say you've been eating low carb and then you have carbs, you notice that like you're always up on the scale. And that's just because all of a sudden now you're just you're retaining more of that water than protein or fat retains. And so sodium will also affect this. Inflammation will affect this. Obviously, the time of your month, if you're still have your period, that will also affect just your regular range of fluctuation that happens with your weight, even if you keep your fuel intake with your food exactly the same every day. So for this reason, what I do is I pick a maintenance range. Like for the goal, you can keep a particular number. Like my goal is to get to, let's say, 143 pounds. Okay. That can stay as your goal, where you get to 143.0 or lower, and you've reached the goal. That you can define your goal that way. But in as a lifestyle, to stay at a maintenance goal, you're going to want to pick a range of weight that represents you still staying in that range, that goal range. And usually I recommend it's about 5 pounds. Sometimes it can be a little bit larger if you know that your weight tends to fluctuate quite a bit, or that you just want to be a little bit looser. You don't want to keep it so tight, where you have to worry too much. Like if you only have a 3-pound range, you're going to constantly be thinking that you need to weigh in. Are you above it? Are you below it? That's a lot to manage your mind around. It's can probably be stressful if your range for maintenance is too short, too small. So at least 5 pounds is what I recommend. 5 to 8, maybe somewhere in there. And what I do is I call that like your green zone. So any weight that is in that green zone equals I'm at my maintenance range. I just keep eating the way that I've been eating. And it depends on the person how often they prefer to weigh. But at maintenance, I try to encourage my clients to start weighing just once a week, because those daily fluctuations can be a little bit problematic, and keep your attention on, is there a problem? Have I gone over? Did I eat too much? If that causes too much negative emotion, when there's not really an overeating that's happening, it's just kind of like, it's not really helping. So on the top side of your range, what I recommend doing is having a yellow zone, or you could call it a red zone, orange zone, whatever you want to call it. But it's a zone at which if your weight goes in that range, you have a protocol that you immediately start to follow to get yourself back into your maintenance range. And so that means, maybe you, instead of like eating to your maintenance amount of enough at each meal, you start eating to your weight loss enough with a meal. And, it varies with everybody, but basically, we know that if you want to lose weight, right? If you're in weight loss mode, that you want to allow more hunger to happen, and you want to be stopping before you're full with almost every meal. Maybe you have a couple of exceptions per week in order to get the scale moving in a downward trend. Now, when you get to maintenance, you can eat a little bit more because you're no longer trying to lose weight, right? So your habits of eating will change a little bit. You have a little bit more wiggle room to have a little bit more food. And we're talking like a bite or two per meal. Okay. Or maybe one extra overeat if you're no longer trying to lose. So this difference between your maintenance range, which is the green zone, and your I'm above maintenance range, which I recommend to be about, anywhere like 5 pounds. Okay. 5 pounds, three to 5 pounds. above maintenance range means we're back into losing it lifestyle of eating. We go back to the habits that we used to lose the weight. And this way, you sort of arrest the development of like gaining weight. If you're just not paying attention, you're just kind of living your life. Maybe you're not paying attention to how often you're overeating. And all of a sudden you notice in your weekly weigh in, like, oh, I'm in the yellow zone. Okay. I'm going to wait for hunger now for every single meal. No more overeating. I want to get right back down into my green zone. And this way, there's a quick feedback loop. And this is why I don't want you kind of no longer weighing in, because this way, at least once a week, you'll notice if you're in the yellow zone, and you can usually sort of get back into your green zone within the same week that you notice that you've hopped over into your above maintenance range, the yellow zone. So that's how I coach it. And being in the green zone, especially if it's not too small of a range, but also not too large of a range, is a nice, comfortable way to allow natural fluctuations in your weight due to sodium, hormones, retention, inflammation, being sick, what have you, traveling on the airplane. These things will all affect your weight, so that it can accommodate those natural things without too much concern or needing to worry about anything. And this is like a common thing around my clients who make it to their maintenance goal. They're a little bit worried about staying there. They haven't developed a lot of practice at staying at one weight where it represents their goal weight. Now, they may have been stalled at a certain weight for a long time, which is just maintaining at a higher number, right? But we just call it a stall because we have more to lose that we want to lose. And so we're all pretty good at maintaining. It's just there's something about maintaining around your goal weight that makes it feel a little bit more high stakes for my clients, and rightly so. It means a lot to them. And so we want to just have a very clear strategy about what we do when we weigh this amount versus what we do when we weigh this amount. And if my client goes above their yellow zone, there's things that they can do to get help getting back down, because maybe things are different than they used to be. Maybe there's a lot of stresses that are putting pressures on your eating. For a lot of my clients, this is like when their parents get sick or somebody dies, or something really upsetting has happened. These kind of coping mechanisms around food that just aren't typical can come up and cause that. And I always say to them, this is a great time to hire a coach again, just get some support, enlist somebody to be your accountability partner, call a therapist if you need talk therapy, whatever you need. That's a good sign that you need a little bit more support. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's very normal to pop out of your maintenance range without it necessarily meaning that you can't keep to your maintenance range. And if you are always popping out of your maintenance range, that's another whole podcast that I can do, which is we have a number in our head sometimes about what we want to weigh, but the reality of keeping our weight at that number isn't something that we maybe necessarily want to do. And you're going to see that you're going to be maybe unwilling, or it's going to be a lot of work to keep you at that weight. And this is where you've got to redecide, do I want to do what's required with my food, eat in a way that can sustain this weight? And sometimes that's a reckoning. And maybe we just change the number and see if we want to live there, or maybe we just want to take it off. But either way, you don't have to make it mean a hard story about you. It's just a habit around food that you've got to figure out if you can embrace the lifestyle that's required in order to stay at that weight. Sometimes we can, and sometimes we're like, you know what? I kind of like the idea of the number, but the lifestyle that goes with it is just really, really hard. I coached an athlete once who wanted to just take off just like a handful of pounds, less than 5, so that her performance would be better. It seemed really, really compelling. And there were a few habits around food that she, like certain foods that she just liked to have and snack on. And she was just convinced, like, it's just this habit of having this food. It's my snack food. I don't want to give it up, but I want to perform better in my races. And so we worked with it. And you know what? At the end, she didn't want to give up the food. And she didn't need to race any quicker, really, in the end, to enjoy her lifestyle as an athlete anymore. It was just this idea, like, that she had that, like, being faster would be so much better. But, like I spoke about in the other episode, whatever we want to go after is a yes for that, but it's a no to other things. That's why when I teach doable hunger, so often I'm like, okay, well, like if you say yes to snacking before you have your meal, let's say you're tasting the food, you're having bites, licks, and tastes before you actually sit down for dinner. Well, you've filled up part of your stomach with that food. And if you don't want to overeat, now you've got to give up part of that meal that you would have been able to eat on your plate sitting down at a meal, because you've already had those bites beforehand. So you can't keep all the eating, you know what I mean? And we'll still want to lose weight. Like you've got to give up something, because each lower weight, each lower pound that we want to get to with our body requires a different intake of food to sustain that weight. And it's just like a never ending experiment that we get to figure out, like, can I figure out a way to like my life, eat that amount of food, and reach that weight? Maybe I can, maybe I'm willing to, maybe I don't want to. But this is like an experiential process that is really like the only way that you'll figure it out is if you try it. And, it's a pretty quick feedback loop anyway. Okay. So the other thing that happens in maintenance is figuring out how to maintain in that range during exception times, which are most often vacations, extended vacations like cruises, and holidays. So you need to get a number of these things under your belt usually before you can have a lot of confidence keeping your weight in your maintenance range. And so we just make a plan for, like, okay, what do we think is needed? Like I remember one of my clients, she just wanted to keep on coaching with me until she had been to Hawaii a few times. And she was convinced that going to Hawaii meant, and being at maintenance range, that she couldn't go out to eat. That for like, except a couple times a week, like she ate at home. And she was just convinced that she could not go out to eat. Well, so we're like, all right, well, let's try it. And so she was there and she had to tell, her husband, no, I'm not going to go out to eat with you. Like, you're welcome to go out to eat, but I'm going to stay here and have my food. It's very important for me to stay in maintenance. And so, husband went off a few times, and I don't know if he ate with other people or what happened, but she ate at home. And it turns out when she missed out on the meals with husband, she was overeating. So she was just mistaken that it was like the thing that she thought it was, which was going out to eat, which was causing her weight gain. And the only way she figured that out was to just test it in that environment. And so, she came back and was like, I can't believe I gained weight, even though I didn't go out to eat. And I was like, all right, well, let's look at the overeats that you had. And it was just about like overeating because she was thinking like, I have to do this different because maintaining weight is hard. And I was like, all right, well, if you believed it was easy maintaining your weight, if you really believed it was easy, how would your actions around food change? She's like, well, I would go out for dinner. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to try that next time. You're going to go out for dinner just as much, but you're going to redefine how much is enough for you when you're out for dinner. And it was really subtle work that had to do with just a few extra bites of food that she was having um, from thinking like, oh, this is special or we're paying a lot for this. That was driving some of the overeating that she was doing at those restaurants. So it wasn't the environment that she found herself in at the restaurant that was causing her to overeat. It was her thoughts about this is special and this is, I paid a lot of money for this that was driving the overeating. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's special, but that doesn't mean you have to overeat. Right. And so we questioned all the thinking around it. And yeah, it was true that like she went on several vacations and finally like drilled it down to like a lock solid plan about how I eat when I'm out of my home and I'm on vacation and there are special foods and special opportunities to eat. Like, how do I want to think about eating? Like, how can I have the eating experience that maintains my weight, but also feels special to me without needing to overeat it? So there's that. There's deliberate coaching and experimenting around exception times at maintenance so that my client can get really confident in knowing like what works and getting clear on, you know, the assumptions that they make around special times and how that can affect their weight. Okay. The other thing that is really important is especially in like say for example experimenting with these exception times of vacation and things like that and maintenance is developing a practice of relying on yourself even in special occasions or if you're just at home having a regular summer at home but you're in your goal your maintenance range like just knowing like yeah, is it possible that I can overeat and pop out of my maintenance range? Of course it is. So normal. Everyone in maintenance goes through this. What's really important is that you develop a confidence about your skill set of being in maintenance. No different than your confidence in riding a bicycle. Like I can get on my bike right now and ride all the way down to the Fresh Market grocery store through my neighborhood. I don't do that a lot, but I can. And I have a sense of confidence that, like, yeah, if I want it, like if my car broke down, I could go and shop dinner on my bike. I'll bring my basket, I'll get the food for dinner, and I'll bike it all home. And that would be slightly out of my comfort zone, but I can depend on my skill set to do that. And it's no different than my clients in maintenance. It's just giving them permission, reminding them that they've got to feel confident every time they weigh in and they're in that green maintenance zone is a way to feel confident. Even the times when they popped up into their yellow zone and they've worked to like pivot how they eat and get back into that maintenance zone, even more of a reason to stay confident. So it's just knowing that like I know what to do to get me where I want to go, whether that's like just rinsing and repeating each day in maintenance or just going into like weight loss mode now and then. When I notice, oh, I've been eating a little bit more. I'm not really so focused on it. And once in a while that happens and I just go right back into my green zone. The other thing that happens with my clients in maintenance is they often by the time they get in their maintenance range, they kind of have their eating that they do that helps them lose weight like on lock, meaning they really know their body. They know how hungry they are in the morning. They know how much to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they know like how much the body needs in order to get where they want to go on the scale. But in maintenance, it's kind of different, right? Because we're no longer trying to lose. And so we start to apply the same idea of like, all right, it's a formula of how I eat. And I always eat like this amount for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We kind of start to automate our actions around when we eat and how much we eat, right? So this is the new habits of around food at maintenance becoming automatic. But here's the thing. Life happens sometimes. Sometimes you take a really killer exercise class, or you sign up for Pilates, or maybe you're doing a race, or you're walking with your girlfriends. Maybe you're stressed at work and your cortisol is up and you are like, or you're staying up late and doing late work. This is giving physiological different signals to your body, and your body may check your level of stress, or if you're asking your body to do more physical work, like I mentioned, you'll have more hunger from time to time. And a lot of my clients in maintenance will say, oh my God, I had all this hunger, but I just kept eating the same amount that I'd normally eat because I don't know why I have all this hunger. Well, that's not being reflexively responsive to hunger. See, the point I'm trying to make is that in maintenance, because life is always changing, our inputs on our life are constantly changing and evolving, our body will respond with sometimes different cues for hunger and satisfaction. If you're sick, you are not going to be hungry to eat, and you've got to kind of listen to your body just the same way. If you have that new exercise class and you're burning a bunch more calories, you're probably going to feel more hunger than you're used to. And so it's like the main thing to remember is not like, oh, I have to eat a certain way that I recall eating to stay at my maintenance range. Instead, it's like, no, the main thing is that I trust the signals that my body is giving me rather than doubting like my body and forcing an agenda of like how much food I need to eat to stay in maintenance. Okay. Even though I'm in menopause, I don't get a period anymore. Sometimes I notice I have more hunger, even though I don't get a period anymore. It's almost like that cycle of like extra hungry that I used to get when I was before I was in menopause. It's still playing out, but just in like a dampened way. And those days I still eat a bit more, and it just kind of like works out. You can never go wrong with listening to your body signals. That is what is going to leave your body feeling really like safe and peaceful, and regulating your weight really easily, is to still stay really in tune with what your hunger and your satiety signals are telling you. Okay. Okay, two more. The next one is for my clients in maintenance. I want to encourage them to allow their relationship to certain foods to continue to change and evolve over time. A lot of times what happens is when my clients lose all their weight, they do it like with certain relationships with food. Maybe they up leveled some of their foods and they just started eating salads for lunch, let's say. And that coincided with them like regular weight loss. And so a lot of times what I notice is when they get to maintenance, they're like, no, I have to keep eating salads for lunch. And the problem is that, everybody's tastes and preferences for food change all the time, especially like seasonally. And so thinking that like the food you lost your weight with has to be the same food that you maintain with is just a hoser of a thought. You want to keep the doors open to stay open to your true tastes and preferences for food, especially as they change and evolve seasonally or even over the years. I remember my mom telling me, like, I just don't eat chocolate anymore. And I'm like, what? She was like, she loved her chocolate, but just like one day, like she just didn't, she wasn't into it anymore. And I know that's changed for me too. I used to have popcorn all the time. Like I loved like that. What is it called? Boom Chicka Pop. Like it was just delicious to me. I used to, I used to have it when I was having my Sauvignon Blanc, watching Real Housewives. Um, really don't eat it anymore. It represented something different and I'm just past it now. I'm more interested in different kinds of foods. So, allowing your relationship to foods to continue to change, even though you are at a weight that you don't want to change. Okay. And staying open to that. And finally, I would say the last thing is the most kind of weird and interesting at the same time. And this is it's kind of like this paradox that happens. Like my clients who get to goal weight, they're really good at weight loss. They crack the code, they figured it out. They've been like for a long time, you know, as they lost their weight, like just feeling really good getting on the scale, being like, boom, I did it again. They get that dopamine hit from the loss. And then when you get to maintenance, that's the thing is that that dopamine hit of losing every week is now gone because the goal has changed. The goal is no longer to lose. The goal is to stay, have the scale number stay within that green range, the maintenance range. And this is, you know, it's a hard sell to be like, no, it's like just as amazing, if not more, for you at maintenance to stay within this range. It's just kind of like ho hum. It doesn't feel like celebrating. Like my clients tell me losing weight was week after week. And so oftentimes what happens is they start gaining a few pounds Monday through Sunday. And then they get on the scale on Monday. And that's when they almost like get excited to like take off what they put on over the weekend. And it's a way for them to kind of recreate the tension of, I have a goal. I need to take this off. And then they like everything snaps together. They get to put these weight loss skills back into use and, you know, make that goal by that Friday. And it creates this sort of false sense of drama where there doesn't need to be any, because we don't want you staying addicted to the dopamine high of successful weight loss every week. The point of losing weight is not to get good at losing weight. The point of losing weight is to change your lifestyle and your habits of thinking and acting around food so that you find freedom from restriction and freedom in choices around what to eat and freedom to trust your body to know when to eat and how much. The right food, meaning what you want to eat at the right time, meaning when you're hungry, and in the right amount, meaning I stop before I'm full. That's the goal. And so I want you starting to decrease the sexy talk, if this is you, decrease the sexy talk about losing and start really validating, like I talked about in, what was it, episode 41, validating like how amazing it is that you can maintain your weight, that this was what all that work of losing was for, was to get here, because you don't have to have the scale and weight loss as the primary, you know, leading character in your life. you start to expand your life to bring in other things because you've just normalized your relationship with food. That's what's most important, is letting the weight loss go, the drama of the weight loss go, and letting in the delights of the life that's now available to you because you've freed up all of this white space and this energy for inviting in new things. And that's really like, for so many of us, that feels a lot scarier than just continuing to like gain weight on the weekends and lose it during the week. Because sometimes this involves like big sweeping life changes. Like, hey, I got to think about retiring. And I don't know how the fuck I'm going to retire. How do I deal with not working every day? Or, how am I going to figure out how to feel just as good retired about my life as I do being a busy professional who goes into an office every day? These are bigger questions that are on the other side of weight loss, that are really like, that's the real meat of your life that's waiting for you. Weight loss is just one way to figure out who you are. And when you figure out who you are through weight loss, new goals will come on the horizon. Your responsibility when you get to maintenance is to really acknowledge them and start doing a new project, which is figuring out what's next. What's next? Because I kind of figured out weight loss. I feel the same way about that, like with my drinking, and my primary relationship. Like, I figured out a way to want more from my primary partner relationship. And I feel so like complete with that now. Like, I allow myself to be loved the way that I always wanted to be loved. And the right person found me who could do that. And I feel complete with that. And as soon as I felt complete with that, I was like, oh shit, now I got to become a life coach. So I had to go back to, and recreate a career and go back to school. And I didn't know how I was going to support myself, and then I didn't know if I was going to coach on weight loss or something else. I had to figure out all that stuff. And now that I work full time in coaching, I was like, oh, now I got to write that book that I need to write. And all while there, I'm still like approaching my goal weight, that's still happening in the background. So this idea that like we all have to be all in on weight loss is just kind of bullshit, like you should be at the same time that you're figuring out weight loss or maintenance or what have you. Make time to also like fully develop the other areas of your life too, because the skills that you're learning in weight loss are applicable to all of those areas too. Okay. So those are the main things that I see and how I coach on maintenance. Of course, there's a million other little things, but generally this is what I see and that I like to kind of bring in. And, if you're still trying to lose weight, it's really good to know, right? Like this is the end of the road. This is your tether point. You're going to have a range. You're going to know exactly how to maintain in that range and how you need to eat, how many overeats you can have at that range. And if you go out of that range in the yellow range, like you can quickly and flexibly switch back into weight loss mode to get yourself where you need to go. And when you have a plan and a protocol and clear guidelines around this is what I do when this happens, and this is what I do when this happens, then you can start to really cultivate a sense of like confidence in the day to day. Also confidence around exception times like vacations, cruises, holidays, all of that. And you also have the confidence to meet different stressful times of life or times of life that you are unexpected that can put pressures on you, tensions on you, as like, don't worry, like I'll figure this out, even in maintenance. Because I have those skills. It's like riding that bike. They never go away and you can always rely on yourself. And it's, maintenance is the last call to drop the drama of needing weight loss to as like your primary way of feeling like you have agency and control in your life. I mean, it's one way to do it, but do you really want to have that be like the leading way that you get your dopamine from achieving things? Or are there other things in your life that you really, really want to achieve? Weight loss is a great like trainer in staying focused on a long-term goal that has a lot of different nuances and things to hold yourself to accountable to complete this very like in-depth long-term goal and learning new habits, right? And learning new ways to think about things. It's a great trainer for the other important work for you to do in your life. Okay. So let me know if you're approaching maintenance. If I can help you, go to Instagram at Thrive in Midlife. You can find me there. The episode 44 post or the reel there, and just say hello or ask me your questions, comment with your takeaways, ahas, what have you. And we'll keep the conversation going around there. Don't forget, August 15th, put it on your calendar. Go buy the Love Life and Lose Weight book. It's coming. It's coming. Stay focused and so long. We'll talk next week. Bye. Hey, if this episode was helpful, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's hbeardsley.com/subscribe. You'll get a gift from me, exclusive subscriber content, and advanced notice of in-person events.